Hey there, welcome back. Today's video is going to be all about how college teachers can overcome their nerves and feel more confident at the front of the class. If you're new to my channel, my name is Lila and I'm starting my 5th year as an adjunct professor at the undergraduate level. And I created this channel to be a community for college teachers, especially new and young instructors and adjuncts, to have a place to share the joys and challenges of being a new teacher at the undergraduate level. If you are new to my channel, I would love for you to subscribe and leave me a comment in the comment section down below, letting me know what subject you teach, how many students you have, and what brought you to today's video. So for me, it's very common as a college teacher, when I tell people that I do that, they can't believe that I have any kind of anxiety or nervousness about public speaking, and I do. I think it's a common misconception that teachers don't struggle with nerves and that we just love to listen to ourselves talk. But the truth is that we experience anxiety being at the front of the room and having everybody just staring at you with these blank looks, and there are strategies that you can use to overcome it. So today I want to talk about 2 things that I do to make myself feel less nervous, and 2 things that I try to think about or that have been helpful to hear for me. This is one of many things that I wish someone had talked to me about before I started teaching, and one of a great many things that no one talked to me about, because there's no one to talk to when you're an adjunct instructor. So I hope that this reaches somebody who needs a little confidence boost or just some ideas about how to overcome their anxiety and really enjoy the experience of teaching. So the first thing that I will say is that the number one thing I can do to make myself feel less nervous when it's time to teach a lesson is to be prepared. And preparedness for me means a couple of things. The main thing is that I have a lesson plan, and I did a whole video on lesson planning, which I will link in the description box if you need to go and check that out and figure out how to be putting those together and what to be thinking about as you do. But a lesson plan for me is a must, because I know I'm not going to have to be making things up as I go, and if I get nervous I can just look at the plan and know what comes next. The second thing is to always take a few minutes, even if you just have to get up like 20 minutes early that day, or use your lunch break at your full-time job if, like me, teaching is your side hustle, and go over the assigned reading. I feel so much better leading a discussion about reading if I've read the piece recently. And I teach things at this point that I've read like 20 and 30 times. So it's not necessarily about refreshing your memory on the content, but just to have it right at the front of your mind. And it's amazing new things that you'll see that aren't in your lesson plan that you may think, actually, I want to add that, or I want to talk about that. So having a lesson plan, going over the assigned reading. And then I talked in my lesson planning video about how I have a today we will list on the board at the beginning of class. I actually find that that really helps also with nerves, because it shows the students that you have a plan, and when they think you have a plan, then you can feel like they think you have a plan, and kind of get that feeling of authority over the room, which is hard to capture. It's nebulous, but it's important, especially for new instructors, I think, to feel like in charge of the room and confident, and like the students in the room are confident that you have everything under control. The second thing that I think that's really helped me overcome nerves is to become aware of my body's physical reaction to anxiety and stress. So everybody reacts a little bit differently to the feeling of being put on the spot, and it takes a little bit of presence of mind. I talked about that in my last video too, but it takes a little bit of like stopping in the moment and just being aware of what's going on to notice, but take that time to notice, what is my body actually doing when I get nervous? And you don't have to wait till you're in the classroom for this. I mean, you can do this in an important meeting, or just think back. A lot of people know what their nervous reactions are. Mine personally is dry mouth. So my mouth goes like dry as the desert when I feel nervous. And instead of trying to control that or criticize myself for it, what I do is I just prepare for it. So I always have water and mints and chapstick. Those are the 3 things that will make me feel more physically comfortable in a moment when I know that I'm stressed. And your body is just reacting, to that temporary feeling. Adrenaline will kick in and eventually you'll get through it. But to make yourself more comfortable physically in that moment, not be struggling. I mean, when you're trying to talk, like, dry mouth is really inconvenient. So making sure that I always have water, or just whatever I'm gonna need, a beverage to make myself comfortable. For you, it might be something else, but just, whatever your personal physical responses become aware of it and then prepare to make yourself comfortable as you move through it. It's almost never the case that you're going to be dealing with a nervous reaction through an entire hour and 20 minutes. I mean, it just doesn't really happen. So keep that in mind. You've just got to get through that initial feeling of, and your body's initial response, and then you'll calm down and hit your stride and things will be better. Two things that I would say to keep in mind, and now that I'm talking about it out loud, I'm realizing there's actually three things. One thing is, this isn't a concrete action, but it's just a mindset. Keep in mind that there's nothing wrong with silence in the classroom. There's nothing wrong with silence. You can, if you ask a question and nobody responds to it, you can give it a beat. Or you ask a question and the only kid in the entire, I say kid, I have adults, but the only, student in the entire room that ever participates is raising their hand again and everyone else is just giving you a blank look. You can just pause. If you need a moment to think, you need a moment to collect yourself, you need a moment to drink some water because your mouth went really dry, silence is okay. I know that maybe just sounds so obvious, but I know that I feel this tremendous pressure to move the class forward, to always be saying something, to always be kind of with this forward motion, and it's not necessary. So remember that you can give yourself a break in the moment and just take a couple of beats if you need to. The second thing that I would keep in mind, and this is one of the most helpful things that I ever heard from someone when I was getting ready to start my very first semester as an adjunct, I was thinking about how I was going to introduce myself to the students in a way that would inspire their confidence in me as their instructor. And a friend of mine from grad school, who I talked about in my last video, she said to me, if you don't tell them that this is your first time teaching, they won't know. And I know that, again, maybe that sounds well, of course they won't know, how would they know? But I think a lot of times when we're worrying about what other people will think of us, we're not actually being realistic. And so I know that, like a lot of high-functioning people, I struggle sometimes with impostor syndrome, feeling like a fraud, feeling like people are going to be questioning, students might be questioning, well, why is she at the front of the room? She's had no formal training. She's really not qualified for this position. They're not thinking that. You're their professor. You're their professor. The school hired you and they have faith in that. So you can just go in confidently, and if you don't tell them that it's your first time, they won't know. So you've just got to kind of fake it until you make it a little bit and have that confidence, and remember that you know more about the subject than they do when it comes down to it, even if you feel like pedagogically you're still trying to figure things out as an instructor and who you are and all of that. The third thing I would just say to keep in mind is to know that it gets better. It gets better within a semester. You won't always be starting class feeling really nervous. As you get to know students, as you get to, there's going to be a couple in the room who you can always count on to put their hand up just because some people are like that. There's going to be some who come and speak to you about their assignments, or who you get to know, who come and tell you, that someone in their family is sick, and you can get to know them a little bit. And then you're not looking out at the sea of strangers just staring at you. You can, start to connect with students individually. And so within a semester, it's going to get better. Within one class session, it's going to get better. You start out nervous. At some point, you will hit your stride and start feeling better and feeling more confident. And you will not spend the entire hour and 20 minutes, like I said, feeling like you do in that first 30 seconds before you're looking at the clock and trying to decide if you're going to start or wait for a couple more people to walk in. And then over the course of a career, I think it gets better. I obviously don't know. Like I said, this is my 5th year teaching. In my last video, I said it was my 4th year, but it's not. It's my 5th year. Time just, it flies. So I obviously don't have all the experience in the world, but I know that this year versus my first year was a world of difference in terms of nerves, and I can attribute that to nothing but just practice. Just practice and experience, and like anything, you start out wondering, how am I ever going to get the hang of this? And then you just do. So know that it will get better. You will not be struggling with this all class, all semester, or for years to come. It gets a little bit better every year. So that's all I had to share today. I hope that this reaches at least one adjunct who's feeling nervous, or one new teacher who's feeling nervous about getting up in front of the class and leading the room. But you were chosen to be your student's teacher for a reason, and you're going to do great. and just fake it until you really start to believe that, and things will get better. I hope this is helpful. If you have any video ideas, questions, suggestions, please leave them for me in the comments below, and I would love for you to subscribe. Thanks.